Welcome to Design Principles for Windows 7. My name is Samuel Moreau. I'm the Principal Design Manager for the design team of Windows 7. And just right off the top, you might be asking yourself, why is there a design guy on stage at the PDC talking about design principles? Good question. Actually, I've asked myself that. Well, we actually think this is both interesting and relevant for two reasons. On the interesting part, we feel that by showing you a little bit of the what and why of some of the design decision-making process that went into Windows 7, we can give you some insights that wouldn't be available to you if you just go home and crack open the build that you've all gotten and just sort of dig around. We can give you some insight into the actual feature decisions. More importantly, though, the second point, which is why it may be more relevant, is we feel that a part of this experience is that is designing Windows. We all play a role in it. You play a role in it, and we play a role in it. And what we hope to do here is to give you a bit of a tool that we utilize to make our design decisions. For one reason, that you can go and adopt this tool. You can utilize these design principles in your own design decision-making process for engineering software. Now, the reason this is important is because, like I mentioned, at Windows we believe that people don't buy Windows to use Windows. They buy Windows in order to use the rich variety of software that all of you make, in addition to the software that we make. And so, what I want to impart here is that we all have a bit of a shared responsibility. We have a responsibility to ourselves to write successful, great software. But we also have a responsibility to each other, the people sitting next to you in this room, to make great software in relation to each other. So the reason that's important is because the overall experience of using the Windows software on the Windows PC is all about making people successful. We're all here to make people successful at what they're trying to achieve. And what they're trying to achieve is not necessarily like using us. What they're trying to achieve is be successful in their daily lives. Or their professional lives, their personal lives. They're trying to get tasks done. They're trying to talk to their friends. They're trying to make money, to be honest. They're trying to get their jobs done. And it's important that we understand all of our role in this collective experience that is using a Windows PC. So with that, the obligatory agenda slide, these are the things I hope to cover today. First, a brief little bit about who I am, and I promise it'll be brief. Second, we're going to go into what is a design principle. Then we'll talk a little bit about why we believe in this design principles approach, much of which I just alluded to. We'll talk about why you might care. Then we'll go into the actual Windows 7 design principles. In there, we're going to talk a little bit. I'll tell some sort of stories about how we utilized them. I'll show some UX that we're not shipping and sort of talk about how we got to that point of what you've all seen in the demos. And then last piece will be a bit of a call to action for you. So with that, who am I? My name is Sam, as I mentioned, and I manage the design team as a part of a larger engineering organization. And the reality is, I'm new to Microsoft. I'm considered a newbie by my colleagues, mainly because I've been with Microsoft and the Windows project for about 2 years. In Microsoft years, especially Windows years, that's not very long. I spent most of my career in Silicon Valley in the web world, and so I've done a lot of work in internet software and startups and larger companies in the Valley. The reality is that I'm here representing a really large team. It's not just design. I may use the words design and engineering interchangeably throughout the course of this talk. What I mean is the engineering effort that it takes to make software takes a large collective of different expertises. And so I'm here representing not just design, I'm representing an entire, very large engineering organization, which is we are all a part of engineering software. Now, that may be interesting to you because many of you may not be designers in the term, in the classic sense of the discipline term. But you all are engineers of experiences, and so you all have a role to play in this. Now, I want to talk a bit about what is a design principle. So in Windows terms, the way we think about design principles is we think about they have a value to play in the overall experience. First and foremost, we think of them as a framework. So think of them as a very large framework that helps target, think of it like a satellite, that helps point you in a basic direction. They're a framework for our design thinking. And I'll go into some more detail about what I mean about these different points here. The second way we think about a design principle is we think about them as a key part of the decision-making process. In the course of engineering software experiences, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of decision points that we must make. A principle helps us navigate that decision-making tree. And the third way we think about them as a tool for evaluation of what we built against our stated goal, what we set out to achieve. So that's sort of how the three phases of utilizing a principle play out. So again, think of them as a way to align a wide array of perspectives, many different types of people. Maybe it's an engineer, a CEO, a designer, a customer, a marketer, a salesperson. It's a way to align all of their perspectives and define a common ground for everybody to have a common way of thinking and talking about what you're trying to achieve. So why do we believe in this approach? Well, like I said in the intro, I'll back up a little bit and talk about the overall experience of using a Windows PC. We all have a role to play in the overall experience of using a PC. Right? Each of us is responsible for not just our piece, but we're responsible for our piece in relation to the rest of Windows, or the rest of the PC experience even. Now, on top of this, what's core to Windows is that we believe that the strength of Windows lies in our openness as a platform, right? And our success relies on the richness and variety of the software that runs on Windows, the software that people like you build. Now, that's an important statement. Openness as a platform, richness and variety. So that's the good part of it. The bad part of it is, at the same time, we hear all the time from various feedback channels, and we hear when talking to users and customers all the time, that the overall experience of using a PC can be complex or inconsistent. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but those two things, that positive and that negative, are supporting of each other. Principles are meant to address this situation in a way that helps frame how we all think about the experience of writing software and help to align all of our perspectives. So I'm going to make a sort of rudimentary example here just to help walk through, to get us a sense of what this means. So let's imagine for a minute, and I'll take us out of the software realm for a second. Imagine for a second that everyone in this room, we set out to build a car company. So everyone in this room, cars are kind of cool, we all like that. We're going to build a car company. Not a car company. So everyone in this room, put in your mind the type of car you'd like to build for our car company. Okay? So everybody's got a car in their mind. Now imagine trying to align all the different types of cars that are in the people's minds in this room, right? So let's go to the principles. I've made up an example of a principle here that for our company, what we value, this car company, is performance and efficiency together. So now, go back to that car that's in your mind and analyze it. Evaluate it against this principle. Does it hold up? Is that car in your mind both performant and efficient together? I think, half of you have Maseratis or something in your mind. I don't think it's going to cut it, right? That's where the framework comes in. The framework to align our perspectives. If you thought about a Maserati or Porsche or something like that, maybe it's not the most efficient, cost-efficient, fuel-efficient vehicle in the world. If you thought about a Prius or something like that, maybe it's not the most performant car in the world. So all of you have to rethink now about which car you had in your mind. If you had one of those cars, great. You're somehow aligned with our overall perspective. If you didn't, now you've got to get a new car in your mind that matches this performance and efficiency together, at least a vague semblance of what type of car you're talking about. So now, in the decision-making process, step 2. For this people in this room, and we're all making this car, each of you is going to have a different job to do. And in your job of making this one car, which is a part of a car line, which is a part of a car company, each of you are going to have thousands and thousands of decisions to make throughout the course of your day. Now, which chassis you're going to choose, which engine is appropriate, which cloth is appropriate for the seats, etc. And if all of these things hang together under a common principle of performance and efficiency together, now all of a sudden we're building an alignment and we have the flexibility to actually do our day jobs. Nobody's telling us, very explicitly which fabric to choose for the seat, or which, how to style the headlights, or which, fuel injector to put into the engine. Nobody's telling us that. It's up to us to make those decisions in alignment with this larger effort. So now the third point, the evaluation. Let's say we're all done. We've made all of our cars. Each of us have made our thousands and thousands of design decisions along the way. Then we roll it out in front of the public and the board of directors, and it's an evaluation tool. They gave us this guidance, set out for performance and efficiency together, and we should be able to point at it and say, look, it is performance and efficiency together. It's the embodiment of what we set out to achieve, even though we had flexibility for our own decision-making along the way. So that principle, what it gave us right there was high-level directional framework, but coupled with appropriate flexibility. We had a lot of flexibility in our daily decision-making. But also, it gave common agenda. We had a shared responsibility to each other, to the people in this room. We had a shared agenda. We were able to build something in alignment without having to be so tightly coupled that we were inflexible, right? That's the role of the principles, and this is how we think about the principles for Windows 7. This is how we hope you can think about them as well. So, with that, here's where you come in. We need all of you to write great software that people love. Great. You're all check. That's exactly what I intend to do as well, right? However, we really want you to do it in a way that helps people realize the powerful potential of software. People like you and I know how great software can be. Normal people, normal users, technology is frightening to them. Some people are not masters of their PC. They don't have a mastery of the software, of the experiences. They don't feel like it's capable, but I must just not know how to exactly get the most juice out of this thing. And so it's important that all of us understand we have a role to play in making them feel empowered, making them feel capable, right? This is where we hope you guys can embrace the Windows 7 design principles. So with that, let me jump into the actual Windows 7 design principles and talk to you a bit about how we went about engineering Windows 7. The first principle I want to talk about, I alluded to just a moment ago. It's called reduce concepts to increase confidence. For those of you that were at Shaitanya's talk about the introduction to, or welcome to the new Windows 7 desktop, you got some insights into how this type of principle informed a lot of our decision-making process. Central to this is the part that I just talked about. Too many people do not feel confident in their mastery of the software that's on their machine. This is a really important thing. They are not getting as much out of technology, as much out of the platform, the power of a PC, that they should be capable of. All of us in this room probably get a lot of power out of it. We are capable of this. A lot of the rest of the world does not. We see this all the time. A lot of times we'll be talking to customers. We do a lot of different types of customer interactions. And we will see this happen where a customer they'll fail a task that they're set out to do. It could be something very simple, like send a photo to their mom or something like that. And they'll fail. And it's usually due to faulty software, to be honest. It's usually due to some complexity or some failure of the scenarios that we're trying to enable. But what they do is very interesting. What they do is they place the blame on themselves. They feel inadequate. The user will literally say, oh, I must just not understand. It's obviously capable of it because it's omnipotent software. But I am the one that's actually incapable of actually achieving this. That's that thing that we have to get the users past. We have to figure out how to get them past this fear of technology and into this world where they are the masters of their software experiences. A key part of this, we believe, is concepts. Redundancy of concepts, overlapping concepts, confusing or conflicting concepts. And so the goal here of this principle is to reduce the number of concepts to the goal of confidence. So in Windows 7, Chaitanya showed this screen at his talk as well. This is a typical Windows or Vista desktop. And the exercise here is, my goal is I want to read my email. The question here is, how do I do that? In reality, there are 6 different things. If I click on them, they will allow me to read my email. So there's a lot of different concepts going on here, right? So we could take a tour through this little screen, top left, there's a shortcut on the desktop, launches Outlook. Start menu, there's a launcher for Outlook. Quick launch, there's a launcher for Outlook. In the taskbar, there's a window that is the process that is Outlook that is running. In the notification tray, there are 2 processes. One is I have a notification that I have an email, and the second one is, I believe, just the process that is Outlook is running. Right? There are 6 different things to click on in order to meet my end goal, which is reading my email. Okay? That's a lot of complexity. That's a lot of confusion. That's a lot of redundancy. We can do better than this. As you may have seen in all the different demos of Windows 7, we spent a lot of energy to reduce and simplify this concept. Windows 7, it looks like this. There is one place. There's one face of Outlook, of your application. It is the place where we expect you to both launch, switch to your task, and be notified. Right? It's a very important thing here. Now, maybe I cheated. Maybe I took off the shortcut on the desktop, right? Or maybe I hid or demoted the notification in the notification area. But the reality is what I want to impart on all of you is that you have a role to play here in this. Don't spam the desktop with your shortcuts. Don't spam the notification tray or with all kinds of different notifications calling attention to yourself, right? Let the user be in control of their experience and reduce your concepts, right? We want people to be confident in their mastery of the software that exists on their PC. This is an important thing for all of us. Now, Windows, what we will probably always do, right, is we will offer a lot of extensibility points. That is what we do, right? And that's why you love developing for us. My plea to you is don't exploit them all. Make conscious decisions about how you're utilizing the right extensibility points. Don't just utilize all of them because you can. Okay? Principle number 2 is something we call small things matter, good and bad. Now, the way to think about this is to frame it as, there's 2 parts really. There is end-to-end scenarios. And when you think about an end-to-endness of something, think about all of the different steps along the way. Think about the little things along the way. Think about the things that people are going to do early and often, right? Think about a little tiny thing, might be a little tiny thing in abstract. A little tiny thing that somebody sees every single day is not a little tiny thing. A little tiny thing that everybody sees every day, and we're talking about millions and millions and millions of people, is not a little thing. This is a call to give attention to what those seemingly little things may be. Right? That's the first part. End-to-endness, right? So let me give you an example about how we thought about this. This is the File Explorer in Windows Vista. Looks very familiar, right? I'm looking at a folder full of photographs. Now, look at this for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back and forth here between the File Explorer showing photographs in Windows Vista and the File Explorer showing the exact same photographs in Windows 7. I want to talk a little bit about some very subtle nuances. These things are small things, right? But they really matter. Okay? Windows Vista, Windows 7. Windows Vista, Windows 7. Now, what do you notice? One of the things that you notice is that we call less attention to ourself, to our Chrome, right? We put more emphasis on the content that the user has, right? Notice the number of photographs in there? Notice the number of photographs in the view. right? There was an attention put to the layout, a small thing. We thought about space efficiency of layout in order to get more photos into the view, right? We thought about pulling apart, taking away some decorations. For example, each of these photos has a decoration, a border, a stroke, right? There's more decoration applied to it. We have a command bar that calls more attention to itself. We have actually tighter spacing in this one than we do in this one, right? This is an important thing if your job requires you to put photographs into a flyer for your real estate business every day, all day. This is an important little thing. It's going to help you, save you a few seconds here and there. Now, you may not even notice. We don't believe customers will actually notice this detail. But it's an important little detail for you to think about. They may feel that the overall experience of using a Windows 7 PC is more pleasurable than Windows Vista or other operating systems, but they may not be able to put their finger on it, and that's okay. These are these little tiny things that you have to think about. Another thing that we talk about is we talk about delight. And that may seem like a really strange thing. I realize now I am the design guy on stage at PDC talking to a bunch of developers about delight. What delight looks like is smiles. What it looks like is pleasure, enjoyment, love, right? How do you actually get somebody to enjoy the experience of using their PC? Like, it's a really odd thing. Well, for the new taskbar, we actually set out, and maybe we're crazy, but we set out to actually design in what we call delighters. Now, our characterization of what a delighter is literally something that puts a smile on someone's face. Now, how do you achieve that? We had all kinds of, ways the team got together. We did brainstorms. We had all kinds of different ideas. And then we had a genius moment. We said, I know, we're Windows. Let's write an API. I'm just kidding. They told me I couldn't talk at PDC without putting code on screen, so I figured I had to make up something. So I give you the Windows 7 Delight API. Just kidding. But actually, in reality, we honestly did set out to put delight on it. So the question you might ask yourself is, so what does this look like? Well, this is a zoomed-in version of the taskbar for Windows 7. And I'm zooming in for an important reason here, that we knew that as a UI function, we needed to show some user feedback when the mouse enters the region that is a launched application icon. Okay? That's a UI thing we had to achieve. Now, what we could have done is we could have just made it Windows system color. Great. But we had this sort of thing in the back of our mind that we wanted to put smiles on people's faces. So through in the course of a number of different brainstorms and explorations, the idea popped up of, what if we let the application shine through? What if we let the application color shine through to the experience and let it be about the application? Let's not be about Windows here, right? So every time you hover over a launched application, you're going to get a color that is unique to that application, right? Now, what's going to happen is the more you use your Windows 7 taskbar, the more applications you launch, the more windows you have running, the more color variants you're going to have along the bottom, the more beautiful your experience is going to be. Pretty interesting idea, we thought. So just for a refresher, here's what that looks like. When I hover over Outlook, its predominant color is yellow. The highlight is yellow. I hover over PowerPoint, orange shines through. I hover over Internet Explorer, blue shines through, right? This is really interesting. We thought this is a pretty interesting idea. And it also sort of feels true to Windows, and where we want you, the application, to be the shining star of this experience. It's not about Windows. It's about the user, and it's about your application and the interplay between those two. So we thought, this is pretty fascinating. We built a bunch of prototypes for this. We tried it out, and we put it in front of people just to see. Is it goofy? Does it make sense? Does it work? And with this goal of delight. So again, going back to what does delight look like? Sometimes it looks like oohs, ahs, and even a giggle. What I'm going to show you is an actual usability test where we brought a user in front of a prototype, and what this person is doing is they are playing with the taskbar. They're literally just hovering over icons in the taskbar. Okay? This is what Delight looks like.
That looks kind of funny. Ooh, it changes color. The light changes color. That is really cool. That's fun. I like that.
She continued to sit there and play with the icons. Now, what you don't see right there is behind a two-way glass, there's like engineers doing backflips and high fives. We did it. So it was a very important thing. Our goal here is love. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to create experiences that people love. And this is one of the important steps along the way. So the next principle that we want to talk about is solving distractions, not discoverability. This is a really important one to me personally. We feel pretty strongly about this one. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm a dad, and I've got a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old son. Just started kindergarten. And recently I was observing like the first or second day of school, and I was sitting in, just sort of watching, because I'm a nervous, neurotic dad. That's what I do. And it was really interesting. The kids were all doing what you would expect a 5 or 6-year-old kid to do. They were jumping over the top of each other, clamoring around. For those of you that are parents in the audience, it may seem like a very familiar scene, right? You know, they're all excited. Everything was new and fresh, and they were trying to understand what was going on. They were trying to sort of make their way in the world and be seen and meet all these new people and understand all these new surfaces and explore this whole environment. Now, it was really interesting. They were loud, right? All the things that you would expect of a 6-year-old. They were loud. They were rambunctious, right? They talked over the top of each other, right? Completely talked over the top of each other. You could not, it was an insane din. It was really wild. I could not be a kindergarten teacher. Right? They cut in line in front of each other. They were not paying attention, basically, to anything. And in reality, they were far more concerned about themselves than anybody else in the room. They could only think about themselves. Now, all of this is logical, right? You expect this of a 6-year-old. They do not have fully formed adult social graces. You don't expect that of them, right? And then all of a sudden it struck me. I was like, wow, this looks really, really familiar. This reminds me of software. This reminds me of software, calling for attention, features, icons, notifications, all these things clamoring for your attention. All these things that care little, seemingly, about the thing next to them, whether it gets its moment. Right? They didn't necessarily have what we would call manners. And software has a tendency to not have manners. Right? But it's all of us in this room that can actually change that. We can teach software manners. It's completely capable of it. Right? Solving distractions, not discoverability, is one of those steps that we can take to make our experiences have social graces, have manners, have the confidence to be successful. Right? Without having to be the kid that needed to jump over the top of the other kid to get the block. Right? So let's talk about how we address this. As many of you know, this is the new taskbar. We've seen this in a lot of different demos. This is what happens when you hover over an icon. Now, one of the things that we thought was a really important investment for Windows 7 was moving what we called destinations, or think of it as like the things that you want to do, closer to your fingertips for everyday activities. Right? You've seen this as a very popular feature. Right? This is the feature that I'm hearing a lot of people talking about in the halls, something we call jump lists. It was a very important investment for us. And we loved it, to be honest. We all are big fans of this feature. And users are as well. They feel as though they are capable of getting their tasks done faster, right? Really important investment for us. We thought, well, we should obviously elevate this in the UX to make sure that people know about it. If people don't know about it, then maybe we're throwing all of our engineering effort away. We're wasting our own effort if nobody ever finds this feature. Right? This is what they look like. Now, what I'm going to show you is an early design that we are not shipping. It was an early design of how this jump list manifested in the UX. And then I'm going to talk about sort of how we went through the process of getting to where we are today, which is the jump list that you see on screen. This was the jump list of not that long ago. Right? What you'll notice is that there's a button hanging off of the edge of the icon. I have a word is the launch icon. Hanging off of the right edge of it is an arrow. It's an other button, something we refer to as split buttons, meaning there's a button that is a primary task, and there's another one sort of sidecarring on that button, and it is another menu. Now, this was perfectly acceptable. It was perfectly successful. You hovered over there, you saw, oh, there was another thing next to Word, and I could click on it, and I could pull up a menu. It was successful in many regards. In abstract, that's fine. When we brought this all together and we started utilizing it, some other little sort of problems started coming up. One little problem that came up is it was a little bit noisy. The experience of using your taskbar had all these arrows. Everything had an arrow on top of it. Right? It was a little bit noisy and distracting for a function that you really only had to learn once, and then you understood what it did. The second thing, it was a little bit of a difficult hit target. By hit target, we mean people were trying to do something, whether they were trying to launch the application and they would accidentally get the split button, or they were trying to get the split button and they'd actually get the application. Right? So there was an extra, what we call hit target, that was a little bit it was a slight UI problem. But then we thought, well, what else are we going to do? It's a really important investment for us. We have to make people, we really want people to be successful and understand how to use this piece of UX. So what other options could we do? Top, bottom, left, right? I mean, where else are you going to put it? Well, as you can tell, what we decided to do is we decided to put it on right click. A very interesting sort of statement there. We had the confidence to say, people will find it. Something that is very core to Windows DNA is right-click. Right? It's very core to how Windows works. And we're taking the discoverability hit for the lessening distractions gain over the course of using your PC every day, all day. Right? So you can thank us for not having arrows a year into this experience. The next thing I want to talk about in terms of solving distractions, not discoverability, is our good friend Show Desktop. Remember Show Desktop? Remember that icon in the Quick Launch? Right, an icon in the Quick Launch. And what did it do? It showed you your desktop. Didn't launch anything. Wasn't necessarily quick, but it showed you your desktop, right? Interesting. This one, there was all kinds of complexity. One, we were getting rid of the quick launch area because we were making the entire experience, the entire taskbar, more about a really quick launch. And two, it broke one of our earlier points, one of our earlier principles. It was a concept confusion, right? In order to reduce the concept, we can't have an icon that does one thing, sitting next to another icon in the exact same space and surface that does a completely different thing. How does that inspire confidence and mastery of the software? So we thought, well, what are we going to do with Show Desktop? Scenario is still critically important. People need to see the information that's on their desktop. They need to see their gadgets. They want to be able to quickly get at the surface that is their desktop. So we moved it over to the far right corner. A couple things come into play here. For those of you who know something called Fitts Law, there's a Fitts Law is at play here for an ability to just throw your mouse into the corner. Additionally, we didn't put an icon on it, right? It is simply a space at the far right corner of the taskbar that allows you to target it. Once you discover it once, again, distractions, not discoverability, it's acceptable. it has a very quietness to it, that you don't need to have an icon there all day, every day, telling you what this thing is capable of. That 6-year-old telling you, I need to go to the bathroom. This is what it looks like, as many of you have already discovered. Throw your mouse into the right corner, you get to peek at your desktop. The next one I want to talk about is something that I think will resonate with a lot of the folks here. Time matters. Build for people on the go. What's important about this one is that we believe that at Windows that performance is the universal UX killer. I don't care how beautiful you are. If you're slow, you're a dog. It doesn't matter, right? That's central to this principle here. Time matters, build for people on the go. Remember I was talking a bit about the delighters and the idea that a little thing matters and that you could save somebody like 3 seconds every single day for the experience, the time that they use your software? That really is valuable. Time really does matter. The second thing about this is that people are on the go. People expect to move. Ray Ozzie talks about this at his keynote, where he talked about the PC, the internet, and the phone as all needing to be part of people's life. And everything has a unique role to play. With this principle, it's a call to think about those situations. Think about the fact that people are mobile. Laptops are more and more prevalent. They don't want the PC experience to be tethered into a room in the corner of their house. They want it in their kitchen. They want it in their living room. They want it at home. They want it at the office. They want it to work back and forth. They want their devices to be interoperable. They want to have a printer here and a printer there and have them both work and not have to do gymnastics every time they want to print something out. Right? Time matters. Build for people on the go. Think about in your scenarios of your product. Think about the moment that are you interruptible? Think about how you relate to the other experiences that are on the machine in a person's normal life. Right? So, this isn't the most visual example, but I think it's a really important point. How many steps do you think it takes to enable shared printers? And I think Julie talked a little bit about this at the keynote demo. In Windows Vista, to enable a shared printer, it is roughly, any guesses? How many steps? 14, 6, 7, 5, 30 to 40, depending on the path you choose. And I think I was generous. In Windows 7, we obviously invested in this scenario. In Windows 7, it is 3 to 5 steps. Right? This matters. The act. What I really want to do is I want to print out when I get home something. Right? It's a really important thing. It saves people a lot of time. Going back to confidence and mastery of the experience of using a PC, these things feed into that. Right? You have to make it easy for people to be on the go. Respect their time. This next one is more about, if the previous one was how people are on the go, this next one is about how do people think about your decision-making process. A lot of times you're working on a feature, and it's really important, and it's in the context of a lot of other features, and you spend a lot of time focusing on what may be the optimal setup or scenario for the use of this thing, right? And sometimes you forget about all the other life stages that go on in the experience of using software on a PC. So we tried to expressly state that it's really critical that you think about the full life cycle. First impressions matter, right? So these are some examples of how we think about this. Installation and creation, right? Be fast, quiet, and trustworthy. Going back to the point I made about spamming every possible extensibility point and spraying icons all over the place. These are the types of things that are not necessarily trustworthy. They're not necessarily quiet, right? The more questions you ask is not necessarily fast, Be fast, quiet, and trustworthy. Second, first use and personalization. The more compelling an initial experience, our theory here, the more compelling an initial experience, the more likely someone is to engage and invest in furthering their engagement with your software, right? Think about those 6-year-olds. Think about that kindergarten class. Think about its approachability, right? Relatively daunting, dinning, unapproachable experience that is a 6-year-old kindergarten class. Imagine it a little bit more quiet up front. Not that I want 6-year-olds to be quiet, but imagine an experience where you could step into it, be comfortable, get your bearings, then step a little further in. This is how you should think about your software experiences. Daily use. That's the one that you spend a lot of time on in your scenarios. You may think about, well, this is how people are going to use it every day, right? Help. This is an interesting one. How many times, and I think a lot of people are guilty of this, a lot of software experiences are guilty of this, is that if there's a problem, it's basically you throw them to customer service at some point. Say, here's a phone number, good luck, right? Our software experiences can have a tendency to do that, right? I'll just put a help link, I'll put a little question mark in the top right corner, I'm good, right? They got help, they can figure it out, right? That's not necessarily the most helpful you can be. There's also, I think there's little details that you can do in there. There's little nuances where you can do a little thing that matters in a moment like I have a problem or an unanticipated need. I'll give you an example. A random example happened last night. I was going to dinner. I walked out of the door of my hotel and to get a taxi, and I said, I need to go to this restaurant, and the valet person said, would you like me to call ahead for reservations, sir? Now, he didn't have to do that, right? It's a very little thing, a very nice little detail, and attention, a good thing matters. I didn't need reservations, I already had them, but I thought, wow, that's really thoughtful detail that they actually think about that little thing instead of, they could have just opened the door and been on my way. Uninstall or upgrade. This is where you need to respect a user's time. Respect their investment. If they're investing their time and their data and their information with you, make a meaningful migration. You want them to upgrade. You want them going back to fast, quiet, and trustworthy. You want them to come along with you on multiple iterations, multiple versions, have a long, loyal engagement with your software, right? Respect their time and investment. And if a person tells you, no thanks, I'm going to break up with you, go away gracefully. Don't stalk them. My clicker has decided to stop. The last principle I want to talk about for Windows 7 is one that we call be great at look and do. This is a really fun one, actually, because it's something that you can utilize every day. Now, what this means is we all have expectations for experiences, whether we sort of like consciously think about them or not. And this is a call to sort of get a sense of your gut. Get a sense of your expectations. Not just put stuff there because you can, but actually step back for a second and think about expectations. So let me give you an example. You're on your way to PDC. You're hustling out the door. Netflix just showed up. It's on the counter. You grab a DVD and you throw it in your bag. Head to the airport. Sound familiar? You get on the plane. You're okay. You got a couple-hour flight. You think you're going to watch a movie. You reach into your bag. You pull out the DVD and you pop it into your laptop. What do you expect? Now think about this for a second. What do you actually expect to happen? Now you have a lot of built-in expectations because, well, TVs and DVD players have told, and movie theaters have told you, here's how this whole thing plays out of watching a movie, right? The question I have for you, though, is does software do that? Does it meet your expectations, or does it do something else not quite right? Right? It should meet your expectations, shouldn't it? It should play the movie. That's what should happen. Now, that's kind of an easy one. Here's a little trickier one. You just go and you buy a brand new phone. This is one that we wrestled with Windows 7. You go to the store and you get a brand new phone. You're super excited. Smart guy, bought a smartphone. And you know, because you're a smart guy, that you can get more out of this phone if you connect it to your PC. Well, because Ray Ozzie told you. Now, let me ask you a question. Think about this for a second. What do you expect? Really think about this for a second. What do you expect to happen when you connect your brand new phone to the PC? Remember, the principle here that we're talking about is be great at look and do. Synchronization? Maybe. What does it look like? What does that look like? An Excel spreadsheet? Good. Bingo. It looks like my phone, the one that's in my hand. It's great at looking exactly like that phone that's in my hand. Right? Now, it's not generic communication device that is smaller than a laptop. Right? It is not gray semi-amorphous blob with an amorphous plasticky screen-looking thing on it with numbers. Right? It's my actual phone. It's the Samsung Rocker that I just paid money for. It is the actual phone. The high phone part is not part of the experience. Don't expect that, by the way. So now the question, that's what look. That's being great at look. Now you're great at looks like. All of a sudden, remember that point I was talking about where people are confident in their mastery of the experience that's using their PC? This fuels that. It's not some abstraction that is generic icon representing communication device. It is my phone. Now, what do you expect to do with it? Somebody mentioned sync, right? Well, when you click on it, this is what happens. Guess what it tells you? Here's what you can do with your phone, right? That's what it's great at. It's great at telling you, here's what you can do with your phone. This looks like your phone, and here's what you can do with your phone, right? All of a sudden, I'm empowered. I'm capable of things. I have a mastery of software experiences that I may not have thought I had. I may have been scared about, I have no idea what's going to happen when I plug this phone into this machine. Who knows? I could end up in some crazy space, right? You mentioned sync. Bottom right-hand corner, set up sync. This is a media-based phone. It's the Samsung Rocker. It's all about music player. Guess what it does? It syncs your music and your photos. There's a task right there. Check, check. I'd like to sync my music onto this phone with my PC. It was that simple, right? I'm a master of the experience of using software on a PC and my phone. Awesome. Now I can actually go about my day because maybe I'm late for my college class, right? So that's the basic design principles we used in the development of Windows 7. And I realized that was probably a pretty fast run through them. And I want to go back for a second about this call to action. What I really want the people in this room to think about is to think about whether you can take these away and utilize them as a tool, right? If you agree with them, excellent. Inject them into your design decision-making process. If you do not agree with them, send me email. We want to learn from you what matters. We want to hear from you. We want this to be the beginning of a conversation, right? This is my email. I want to hear if you agree or disagree with these principles, right? Help us make them better. Help them make us better for 7. Help us make them better for 8, right? And engage in the conversation that all of us have. We all have a responsibility for the overall experience of using a Windows PC, and we all have the same goal. We're all responsible to each other sitting next to us in this room. And I'd like to ask that you participate. Again, I'd love to hear your email. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'll be available tonight in the Ask an Expert. I'll also be available in the Tech Lounge after this. I'm not sure if we have about 5 minutes. I believe I need to move out of the room for the next speaker. And so I'll try to move the conversation over to the Tech Lounge if you want to talk further. And also, please read the Engineering 7 blog. that's a place where we can have a real back and forth conversation. And I intend to put out the principles and such and talk further about this shortly on the Engineering 7 blog. So please fill out the evaluations, and thank you for your time.